She was just a quiet black girl in the back of the classroom, until one math joke turned the entire school upside down. In a sleepy town deep in Georgia, where porches creak, folks wave as they pass by, and teachers are still called ma'am and sir, there was a girl most people didn't notice. Her name was Jayla. She was polite, quiet, always on time. She kept her head down, her voice soft, and her shoes older than most of her textbooks. The kind of child who's easy to overlook, unless you're paying attention. But that day, someone wasn't paying attention. And someone else, her mother, had been paying attention all her life. It started with a math problem, a mistake, then a joke. A teacher laughed at her in front of the class. What he didn't know, Jayla's mother worked for the FBI, and she wasn't laughing. This story isn't just about numbers on a board. It's about assumptions, pride, humiliation, and the moment when one quiet child, backed by a powerful mother, showed a whole school what real strength looks like. So, before we go any further, if stories like this stir something in your heart, if you believe every child deserves dignity and that justice sometimes wears plain shoes, click like, hit subscribe, and tell us in the comments, have you ever been underestimated and rose above it? Because what happens next might just be the most satisfying 3 minutes of karma you've heard all week. Jayla was the kind of child most people don't notice, unless they're looking for someone to ignore. 13 years old, soft-spoken, with skin like warm mahogany and eyes far older than her years. Every morning, she walked to school alone, her steps slow but steady. She wore the same shoes every day, cracked, scuffed, the soles whispering against the hallway floor. But she never complained, never asked for anything. In Mr. Gentry's classroom, Jayla sat near the back, not by choice, but because no one ever offered her a reason to sit closer. The other kids talked over her. The teacher barely looked her way. But that morning, everything changed. "Problem 4, Mr. Gentry called out, tapping the whiteboard. "Jayla, let's see what you've got." She looked up, surprised. Her pencil paused. The room went still. Jayla stood, nerves coiled tight beneath her skin. She approached the board slowly, holding her notebook like a shield. Numbers blurred, her mind blanked, her fingers trembled. She said nothing. The silence grew heavy, until Mr. Gentry broke it with a smirk and a single cutting sentence. "Guess math isn't really for folks who don't know the value of a penny." The air snapped. Laughter rose. Not cruel, but careless, casual, as if it were all just a joke. Jayla didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She met his eyes, just for a moment. Then she walked back to her seat. The room kept moving, but something shifted, quietly, powerfully, irreversibly, because someone was listening. Someone who'd taught Jayla never to show weakness, but always to remember. And that someone? She carried a badge, and a past full of reasons to never let ignorance slide. The laughter faded, the lesson moved on, and the clock ticked forward like nothing had happened. But something had. Jayla didn't cry. She didn't speak. She simply packed her books when the bell rang and walked out the classroom door. Her head held just high enough not to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her break. That night, at the small apartment on the south side of town, her mother asked the same question she always did while setting a warm plate of food on the table. "How is school, baby?" Jayla paused. "Same as always," she said softly. And that was it. No complaints, no mention of the joke, no sign that her dignity had been dented just hours earlier. But something in her eyes, something still and sharp, stayed with her mother long after the dishes were done. The next morning, just after the first bell rang, the front office door creaked open. She didn't make a scene, didn't raise her voice. A black woman in her 40s stood quietly in the hallway. Crisp button-up shirt, slacks pressed sharp, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. Over her shoulder hung a worn leather satchel. The kind that said, "I've been places, and I don't need to prove it to you." She walked past the students, past the trophy cases and the faculty portraits. Her heels clicked once, twice, and then stopped at the main office. "I'm here to speak with Principal Torres," she said calmly, "and with Mr. Gentry." Reception fell silent. There was something about her voice. Not loud, but firm. Not angry, but final. People began to whisper. "Who is she? Is something wrong? She doesn't look like someone you'd want to cross." No one knew, yet, that Jayla's mother wasn't just any parent. She'd spent 20 years in federal service, and she wasn't here to make noise. She was here to set something right. By the time Principal Torres invited her in, word had already begun to spread. Teachers glanced over their glasses. Students peeked around corners. Mr. Gentry sat in the office chair, nervously straightening his tie, unaware that his world was about to tilt. The woman introduced herself calmly. "Charlotte Washington, Division of Civil Rights Oversight, Bureau of Investigation, retired, not irrelevant." She placed her badge gently on the desk. It was old, edges worn, leather faded, but the weight of it filled the room. Mr. Gentry blinked. I wasn't aware this was a legal matter." She smiled politely. "Neither was my daughter. When you decided to humiliate her in front of a classroom full of children." He shifted in his seat. "It was just a joke." And then the door opened again. A student stepped in, no more than 11, cheeks flushed, holding a small digital recorder. "I thought someone should hear what really happened," the child whispered. Click, play. The room filled with Mr. Gentry's voice, clear and smug. "Guess math isn't really for folks who don't know the value of a penny." Silence followed, not just in the room, but across the very heart of the school, because now it wasn't hearsay. It wasn't rumor. It was truth, on tape. Charlotte leaned forward, her voice low and devastatingly calm. "You teach math, sir, but somehow you missed the lesson on human value." Her words landed like a hammer in velvet, sharp, final. Torres cleared her throat. We'll take immediate action." Charlotte stood, placed the badge back in her satchel, and turned to leave. But before she reached the door, she paused. "I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came to remind this place that silence is never neutral, especially in the face of cruelty." And with that, she left. But her message, it stayed. By Wednesday morning, the story had already spread, not just whispers in the hallway, but texts, posts, and emails zipping through the town like wildfire. Parents started asking questions. A local blog picked up the story. By Thursday, the local radio station ran a segment. Is there still room for respect in the classroom? The school board called for a closed-door meeting. Teachers started avoiding eye contact in the teacher's lounge. And Mr. Gentry? He stopped smiling. But not everyone agreed. "It was just a joke," one father said at a PTA meeting. "People are too sensitive these days." Another mother chimed in. "That teacher's been here 20 years. He didn't mean any harm." And yet, others stayed quiet, uneasy, ashamed they'd laughed, ashamed they'd said nothing. Through it all, Charlotte Washington said nothing more. She didn't call a press conference. She didn't post online. She let the silence speak louder than any argument. Jayla continued to go to school. Same backpack, same shoes, same quiet stare. Until Friday afternoon, when a letter arrived. Hand-delivered, cream-colored envelope, blue seal on the front. Inside, a message. Jayla Washington has been selected to attend the Atlanta Junior Academy of Mathematics, a full academic scholarship awarded to students demonstrating exceptional resilience and untapped brilliance. Principal Torres read it aloud in the office. She couldn't quite meet Jayla's eyes when she handed it over. Jayla didn't smile. She simply nodded and whispered, "Thank you." In the hallway, other students began to look at her differently. A few offered quiet congratulations. Some hung their heads. Outside, Charlotte waited in the car. Jayla opened the door, sat down beside her, and held out the envelope. Charlotte didn't say a word. She just reached over, squeezed her daughter's hand, and drove them home. Because sometimes the loudest victories come from those who never raise their voice. We've come this far in Jayla's story, and maybe, like me, you've felt that quiet anger, that ache, when dignity is dismissed like it doesn't matter. Have you ever seen someone underestimated, or been in Jayla's shoes yourself? I'd truly love to know. Your stories matter. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes one story can help heal another. And right now, there's someone out there who needs to hear yours. The school auditorium buzzed with low murmurs. Folding chairs creaked as parents and faculty settled in for what was supposed to be a routine PTA meeting. But everyone knew this wasn't routine anymore. At the front sat Mr. Gentry, shoulders tense, jaw tight. To his left, Principal Torres clutched a printed statement like it might steady the moment. A microphone crackled. "We want to address the incident involving Mr. Gentry and one of our students." Murmurs again. Some crossed arms. Some leaned forward. Mr. Gentry cleared his throat and stepped up. I'd like to apologize for what I said. It was inappropriate. I didn't intend to offend anyone." The words hung in the air, lifeless, mechanical, as if apology had been assigned as homework. A voice from the back rose, calm, measured. "Jayla won't be here tonight." All heads turned. Charlotte Washington stood in the aisle, dressed simply, her presence still commanding. "She's a little busy," she continued, eyes steady. "Right now, she's up at Emory University, helping college freshmen understand algebraic structures. Turns out math is for her, after all." A beat of silence. Then a few gasps. One teacher muttered, "Emory?" Stunned. Charlotte took one slow step forward. "Some lessons," she said, "aren't on the board. They're in how we treat each other when no one's grading us." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The quiet that followed was deeper than embarrassment. It was reflection. No one clapped. No one laughed. Just the sound of reality settling in, heavy and long overdue. Mr. Gentry sat back down, this time a little smaller than before. Charlotte turned and left without another word. But the message, it echoed in every corner of that auditorium, because dignity doesn't demand attention, it earns it. Jayla never returned to Mr. Gentry's class, not because she gave up, but because she found a higher calling, one that didn't need a whiteboard or a desk to prove her worth. Every Saturday morning now, she walks into a small brick church on the south side of town, and there, among folding chairs and chalk-dusted tables, she teaches math to kids who look just like she did. Quiet, overlooked, full of potential. She teaches them more than numbers. She teaches them self-worth. And that's the real story here, not about punishment or revenge or proving someone wrong. It's about rising above with grace, about choosing to be more than what the world expects of you, about remembering that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're born with, even when others forget it. Some of you watching may remember a time when voices like Jayla's were rarely heard, and even more rarely believed. Maybe you've felt that sting of being judged by your clothes, your accent, your last name, or where your family came from. If you've ever walked through that fire and come out stronger, then you already understand what this story is really about. Because Jayla's story isn't rare, it's just rarely told. So here's my question for you. Have you ever been underestimated, misjudged, made to feel small, and still found the strength to stand tall? If so, I invite you to share your story in the comments. Not for sympathy, but because someone else, someone younger, someone struggling, might just read it and feel a little less alone. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or simply made you think, I hope you'll give it a like Subscribe to this channel and help us share more voices that matter. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons don't come from textbooks. They come from people, from pain, from the quiet triumph of choosing grace when you could have chosen anger. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for remembering. What we teach with our actions often speaks louder than anything we say.